viewers, welcome back to the Preaching Humanist with David Oliverio. That is I. Let me continue with debate with Christians and Muslims and supernatural believers of all religions and all faiths. The other two episodes I discussed, come on people, let's not get caught into the rabbit trail, the rabbit hole of deep philosophical debate with believers. There's no need to. They want to take you down the rabbit hole. That's where they feel comfortable. It's nice and dark and cozy down there, and they can get into the mystical parts of religion and Christianity with no evidence. Someone told me not long ago, they said, David, when you talk to Christians, you are relentless, you're like a hound dog, a pit bull. So yeah, my style, my method of talking to believers is a little aggressive, but as long as it's nice, as long as it's kind to people, remember this, there's a fine line of talking to Christians. Yes, I am aggressive, but I'm very nice to the person. Why? Because the criticism of an idea is not the same as a criticism of a person. We are not our ideas. People deserve dignity. Beliefs and ideas, no dignity, no respect for this at all. So sure, it's relentless pressure. Remember this, they are childlike in their thinking. When we're dealing with believers, again, they're thinking about this supernatural world that they cannot prove exists. They are on the hot seat. This is my method. When I talk to Christians, when I'm out on the weekends, when I have debates for years and years and years, whether it's in a church with a pastor or it's out on the street, remember this. They are on the hot seat. The weight of evidence is on them. So I'm not sitting on the hot seat. I apply the pressure to them to get them to think. Another thing I'm going to say, I'm not a control freak type person. I'm not one of your alpha males. I believe in egalitarianism and so forth. So I want to be careful you understand what I'm saying. But I'm in control. I like to be in control when I talk to people that believe in magic and believe in a daddy in the sky. My question is, why do you need a daddy? You need a daddy and you're a grown-ass man or woman? Who needs a daddy to take care of you when you're an adult? Only Christianity is stupid enough to tell you you need someone above you, a father figure, to provide all your needs. So I am in control. And in fact, if you go out there with me on the weekends and talk to Christians, it's so simple. I ask them, they come to me because I have a sign that says, ask an atheist. After about 30 seconds of explaining to them what an atheist is, I turn the tables on them and I begin to take control. They're the ones on the hot seat, not me. I've been doing this for a long time. I ask, this is my method. Remember, other methods are not wrong, it's just different. I ask why and how do you know questions constantly. And those that are out there promoting street epistemology, double thumbs up. It's an amazing technique. I don't have great patience for that, but I do apply a lot of it in my dialogue with believers. But I'm in control. I let them know immediately that my life is better without Christianity since I let it go 30 years ago. And I want to tell everybody I can, you don't need to believe in God to have a good life. Let's move along. Let's progress. I do use the Socratic method. Here's some examples. After I tell them, let me ask you a question now, I turn the tables. Why do you need a God? Last Saturday morning, down at Lady Bird Lake, Andrew and I were out with our Ask an Atheist signs. Gentleman came up as usual. After 30 seconds of him asking me, I turned the tables on him. I said, let me ask you some questions. Why do you need a God? A very simple question. I've done this many years as I go into churches, into Sunday school classes. And it's really interesting to hear their answers. Why do you need a God? Well, I need one to be happy. Hey, I'm an atheist and I'm happier now than when I was a Christian many years ago. Socratic method is good. Here's another thing I ask. Why do you go to a doctor? This is simple stuff, people. Let's keep it simple. Why do you go to a doctor when you're sick? And they say, don't be silly. Of course I go to a doctor. Do you not know, I tell Christians, in Isaiah chapter 53 in your Bible, it says, I don't believe this, but you do, Mr. Christian. By his stripes, allegedly, the stripes of Jesus on the cross, you are healed by faith. Is there any sick among you? The prayer offered in faith will save the sick among you. Lay hands on the sick and they will recover. I push this into them. I make them listen to me. And they don't have an answer. Why do you go to a doctor when you're sick? Why doesn't God just heal you? Good question for believers. It gets them thinking. Here's another one. Can you demonstrate God just like in the Bible? This book is filled with magic, supernaturalistic claims that no one can demonstrate. And I do it all the time. And my buddies are probably tired of hearing me use the same old stuff, Christian after Christian, I talk to all the time. Can you demonstrate God to me? Can you do like Elijah on the mount, calling down fire from heaven? Can you do like Jesus walking on the water? Can you heal the blind eyes? Can you open up deaf ears? Can you do all the supernatural things that happen in the Bible? And of course they can't. And I tell them you'd be the first person in the history of the world to ever demonstrate something supernatural to me. No one's ever been able to do it in the history of the world. You'd be a millionaire. You'd be famous. But, of course, they won't take me up on the offer. But it does get them to think. This is my style. Here's another one. How do you know this is true? I mean, this is pure Socratic method. I always ask him, how do you know that Jesus lives in your heart? And by the way, dude, the heart pumps blood. You do know that, don't you? Well, yeah, but it's my soul. It's my spirit. And they get off. What spirit? What soul? Can you prove it? Can you prove it? Show me, show me. This is my approach. How about this one? Well, David, God bless you. Here's one I do. When they say God bless you, what God? What God? Well, of course, the true God. And then you apply the Socratic method to them, putting the pressure, relentless pressure upon them to give evidence. Here's the one I use a lot. Been using this one for years in Sunday school classes and out on the street. Is it moral in your human psyche, in your mind, just like the Bible says, to send good, moral, ethical people to hell because they're not Christians? He that believeth not shall be cursed and damned. Is it moral for you in your human psyche for Jesus to cast people into the flames of fire only because of their unbelief, if they're good, moral, ethical people too? And of course, that is a tough one. These are relentless questions and pressure I place upon them. They're on the hot seat to prove and demonstrate God, and they can't. Gets them thinking. I guarantee it. Would you do this to your children? I ask them. When they talk about, oh, there's got to be a penalty for sin. I said, would you throw your children into hell, into eternal hell, because they disobeyed you? And of course, that's another tough question for them. How about this one? Do you love your children and your grandchildren as a Christian more than I love my children and grandchildren as an atheist? I asked a pastor this at a Seventh-day Adventist church last year when Andrew and I were at the Sunday school class. We stayed after and talked in front of about 20 of his congregation, his sheep, dumb sheep. I asked him. His name was John. I said, John, do you love your children and grandchildren as a pastor more than I love my children and grandchildren as an atheist? Well, all the eyes were upon the pastor. What is he going to say? He said, well, I think I have the capability of loving more because of God. And of course, I demand him to show me some kind of evidence on that. How does he know that? I got 3 quick examples of relentless pressure, and I shall close. Last weekend down at Lady Bird Lake, doing Ask an Atheist, a young man came up to us, and he was a Christian. Of course, he was going to demonstrate God to us. He thought he could, and of course he couldn't. I said, why do you believe in God? How do you know what you're saying is true? And so forth. He said, I have seen miracles. And as usual, I say, do share, please. Tell me your story of your miracle. And they're so lame. They're so weak. And, of course, the story goes on. He said that he was driving in a car back in the day. This kid was 24 years old. So he said back in the day when he was like 18 or 19. He was driving in a car, very depressed. And, of course, he was raised Christian. Born again, John chapter 3:3, born again believer. and he contemplated suicide. He wanted to commit suicide. He was so depressed. I said, dude, that's not very good. And he said, no, it wasn't. I said, now give me your testimony of the evidence of God. He said, at that moment, of course, I hear this all the time, I felt a warm, fuzzy feeling in my heart. It's always our heart. I mean, your feelings and emotions, Christians, come from the amygdala part of the brain. Your heart pumps blood. Okay, let's get that straight. So he said he felt this warm this warm feeling in his heart and a still small voice in his brain saying, I love you. And he thought that that was God. These are the answers I get when I place questions on people. It's weak, people. They have no evidence at all. It's all subjective experience in their mind. Here's another one. Middle-aged man approached us a few weeks ago out on Lady Bird Lake here in Austin. And he said, I've experienced miracles. I said, oh, please share. I'm dying to hear your evidence for a God. He said, well, first of all, it's a faith thing. It's always a faith thing. And I asked him, is faith an arbiter of truth? Is that a judge of truth? Well, no, but I just know it is. It's a faith thing. And they hide behind faith all the time. So his miracle was someone at a swimming pool drowned. It was horrible. The lifeguards brought him out of the pool. He died, he thinks. And then he went out the story, and he said that the paramedics came, EMS, the lifeguards were there, and he skipped over that part of the story of resuscitating him, human beings doing it. Therefore, God raised this person up because he was dead. First question I had, was he really dead? And how long was he allegedly dead? He said about 5 or 10 minutes. He wasn't dead. There was still enough oxygen in the mind, in the brain, and so forth. He got resuscitated by who? I said, you forgot to explain something. The EMS, highly trained professional women and men, human beings, nothing supernatural, human beings resuscitated him and helped him. There was no God involved in this. This is what I hear all the time, people. Now, you're asking this question. Then why do you do this, David? You know they're never going to change their mind. When you apply this relentless pressure of sowing seeds of doubt, asking them questions, it's good, people. It's good, and I'll tell you why. Probably 40 years ago, yeah, when I was 21 years old, 40 years ago, I remember speaking at a small group as a young preacher in my three-piece suit and my gold chain. I was going to be the next Jimmy Swaggart, I thought. And an older gentleman raised his hand after I was speaking on the Old Testament God, the genocide and infanticide in the book of Numbers. And he said, I don't understand. That seems so immoral, David. Why would a loving God do this? Why would he kill the Canaanites and the Jebusites and every man, woman, and child, and so forth? Now, let me tell you something. That little statement that he made, that tiny little seed that he planted over 40 years ago, stuck in my brain. It haunted me through my 20s and early 30s, back in the 70s and 80s when I was a young preacher. Every time I read these stories in the Old Testament and even preached out of it, it haunted me because that one man asked a simple question. How is this moral? Why would God do this? Very simple to us as atheists. But when you ask these simple questions, that's why I keep it simple with them. When you ask these simple questions, why? Why do you even need a God? Well, because of love. Are you saying I don't have love? Love is not a Christian virtue. It's not a biblical one. It's not a godly one. It's human. No God, no Bible, no Jesus is needed to define love nor to explain love. These are human attributes and virtues. Keep it simple, my dear atheist friends, when we talk to believers. One more, a few weeks ago when we were at Georgetown at the Ask an Atheist booth for the atheist community of Austin, a lady approached me, same old thing. She goes, I've got evidence for God. I said, let me hear your story. She was going through a low time in her life, and she heard an audible voice. Wow, an audible voice. And I asked her, what gender was it? Was it male or female voice? Of course, it was an anthropomorphic alpha male voice, of course. It was all in her head. So we need to do this stuff. So this is how I talk to believers. Yes, it is relentless. Yes, I'm not on the hot seat. They are. They're the ones that need to speak. And yes, I am tired of playing defense. It's time to play offense, people. Now, we can do this in a respectful way to the person. I engage with Christians. I shake their hand. I pat them on the back. In fact, one of the guys at Town Lake last weekend, I said, do you realize, dude, that you're not free? I'm free. I'm the one that's free. He goes, oh, no, I'm not. I'm free. And I said, Jesus clearly said, well, first of all, the Apostle Paul said, I'm a slave of Christ. And Jesus said, I'm quoting the Bible because he believes it, that, hey, take upon you my yoke, Jesus said, for my yoke is burden and my burden is light and my yoke is easy. A yoke goes around in animals. It's a harness. I said, dude, you're the one with the yoke. You're a slave. I'm free. And he goes, well, I guess you're right. That is the Bible. I go, you want to be a slave? He goes, yeah, I like it. I said, dude, I would love to do something to remove that yoke and that chain off your neck. He goes, well, I like my chain. Nothing else I could do for a guy like that. Nice guy, but I tried. So yes, this is my style. This is my method. Put them on the hot seat. I'm not playing defense anymore. They've been playing offense for 2,000 years. It's time we, who have answers, who have natural explanations, who are backed by information from science and reality, it's time for us to let our light shine, to make this world better, because removing this from the minds of humanity is only going to make this world better in every way. Thanks a lot for watching The Preaching Humanist with David Oliverio. Have a wonderful day.